Speaker, and thank you for remembering that today I have 13 minutes, since I only consumed about 3 minutes in the last session. Mr. Speaker, still on the matters President's address, I would want to take this House to paragraph 16, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, the President said that his administration will rely on oversight from the House to make sure the public gets value for every cent invested in every policy, program, and project. Mr. Speaker, this clearly shows that the President respects the separation of powers, arms of government, and already recognizes that this Senate will provide oversight. Mr. Speaker, President Ruto is a president who is not afraid of criticism, and he would want us to state things as they are for him to run this government. And I remember he is on record, Mr. Speaker, saying that he was one in my county, that criticizing your own government is part of showing the support to that government. So, Mr. Speaker, this tells us the President wants us to execute our mandate without coercion or any intimidation. Mr. Speaker, I recall very well the senators, and especially from the Azimio side, complained of the impunity of former CSs. Mr. Speaker, the CSs were not honoring summons from either this House and probably the National Assembly. But I'm happy that the President provided a solution by asking this House to amend its standing orders so that they can be coming in front of this House to answer questions on matters development or the portfolios that they represent. Mr. Speaker, there was a question on whether that is possible. I want to put across a question so that as we deliberate this issue, maybe it's going to provide guidance. Mr. Speaker, this House, and especially the previous Senate, I think will go down in history as the one that had so many impeachments. Mr. Speaker, I recall in those impeachments, we used to have strangers in the House. We used to have lawyers who were even interacting with honorable senators through point of orders. We had governors who came to this Senate and they were answering questions. So, Mr. Speaker, as we look at the issue of the CSs coming to this House, probably there is a way. And I don't believe that being given this an olive branch, the olive branch extended to us, we should call the CSs strangers. Mr. Speaker, it is known that the CS for finance always appear in front of the National Assembly to read the budget. Do we call him a stranger at that particular time? Yet he appears before us. So, Mr. Speaker, I think there is a way so that we can have an opportunity to grill and ask questions to the CSs, because sometimes the reason why they don't listen or they don't honor the summons, maybe they have no respect for the committees. But when you're called by the House, I believe no one would want to refuse to come. Mr. Speaker, the same should be replicated in county assemblies, in county governments, whereby the CECs should also appear in front of MCAs. Mr. Speaker, I'm a former CEC in Kiambu County Government, and I think the Senate should use me as a case study, because I've worked in both the legislation as an MCA and later on in a different government as a CEC. And I tell you, Mr. Speaker, when you invite the CECs or the CSs at the committee level, they rarely give their all. because you will find people there who are interested, and you only need to talk to a chair, and everything is okay. But when you invite them to the House, they will have respect for every senator, devoid of which committee each senator is. Mr. Speaker, there's something I lacked in the President's address, which I would want to put across. If you remember in 1913, or to inform this House in 1913, the white settlers or the colonials, the British colony, formed or called for a meeting to investigate why the Kikuyus or Kenyans had refused to attend to the farms of these white settlers. Mr. Speaker, after they did this investigation, they realized that people didn't feel like appearing in front of the white settlers because the working environment was not a good environment. They were being harassed. Despite them getting their pay, they were being harassed, they were being intimidated, so they refused to work. Why am I giving you this story, Mr. Speaker? That is the first commission of inquiry in this country, where they checked to find the solution of a certain problem. Mr. Speaker, in our campaigns, we were promising our people they're going to be formed a commission of inquiry on matters state capture. Mr. Speaker, I did not find that in the President's address, but I believe it's something we can deliberate as a Senate and ask the President to form this kind of commission so that we can investigate, so that even senators don't always complain here, the executive were not appearing in front of the Senate, the CSs could not honor summons, so we would want to find out what happened, Mr. Speaker. And you know, when I was growing up, I used to watch a program called Vioja Mahakamani. Mr. Speaker, and when the judge of Vioja Mahakamani was rendering a sentence, she used to say, ili iwe funzo kwake na wengine, meaning for it to be a lesson to the person who is being sentenced and the others. So for us to show this country, for it to be a lesson to others who are going to take these seats, the CSs, for those who are taking work in government, for it to be a lesson to them, we need to form that commission of inquiry on matters state capture. Mr. Speaker, the President talked about the judiciary, and again, we agree with him, because if you don't fund the judiciary, they're going to be a puppet of the executive. And Mr. Speaker, again being a victim, for a government that is rogue, the judiciary is your best friend. So we should empower the judiciary by giving them resources. Mr. Speaker, there was an issue here that was raised in the previous debates, the issue of agriculture. And I'm really happy the President is putting a lot in the agriculture sector because this is the backbone of our economy. But there was an issue of GMO, Mr. Speaker. I would want to weigh in and ask this House to at least do a little bit of research before opposing the issue of GMO. Mr. Speaker, my grandfather, who actually died before I was born, was a dealer with GMO products. I believe even today, in every village, there is a man there or a woman who is dealing with GMOs in this country. And Mr. Speaker, what I'm talking about is, there is an old man somewhere who takes an avocado tree, splits it in the middle, and then brings another branch from another mango tree or another avocado tree and puts them together. Mr. Speaker, that is genetically modifying that avocado tree. That is what we call grafting, Mr. Speaker. So before we fight this idea, I think we should do a little bit of research and get to understand what it means when the Cabinet approves the GMO or biotech crops. I had a senator saying that GMO GMO brings cancer? Mr. Speaker, nobody knows. And if at all there is evidence, we are willing to adopt that evidence. And Mr. Speaker, a country called Zambia grows cotton that is a GMO crop. Swaziland and Zimbabwe, they grow the same. Mr. Speaker, I believe no one would get cancer by wearing a T-shirt that has already been developed from cotton that is a GMO kind of food. So, Mr. Speaker, as I wind up, I ask this House to do a bit of research, and at least we have been given the mandate to legislate so that we can say, if we agree that the GMO should be allowed in this country, we can come up with a law. We say, is it cotton, is it corn, or is it any kind of crop? Finally, Mr. Speaker, this House was promised to have a Senate Oversight Fund. Mr. Speaker, this fund will help because as the way things are today, Mr. Speaker, this Senate is probably a puppet of the Auditor General. Because, Mr. Speaker, we wait for the governor to expedite and use all the county monies. Then we wait for the Auditor General to do his audit. When they bring that report here, then we start asking questions to the governors. Where were we when all these things was happening? So, Mr. Speaker, I believe with the Oversight Fund, we'll have our own auditors, we will have our own researchers and advisors, so that once we do oversight, we are able to get it from the stem and we are able to get it from the root. So thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity, and I'm happy to serve the people of Kiambu as a senator. Thank you very much.